Hello there, happy innovators. How you doing today, huh? You having a good week? I hope that you are having a very good week. You know, I don't know what it's like where you live, wherever you are listening to this podcast, but here in New England, it is absolutely freezing here. For the past week or so, it's been like 10 degrees above zero or lower. And yes, it's winter. Yes, I'm used to the cold and all of that, but it is freezing here. Okay. I mean, with the wind chill, sometimes it's like minus 30 degrees, record lows for the region of New England. And when you consider that New England is like the oldest region in the United States, I mean, it was where everything started. When they say that it's a record low, we're talking like, since the year 1620, okay? It's the coldest it's been since then on record. So, yes, there's a little bit of snow and everything, but see, the problem is that there's a lot of ice. Like, absolutely everything is frozen, solid ice. There is ice on certain parts of my property that never get ice. They never get frozen. And we have this thing with the ice that happens around here. They call it black ice. I don't know what they call it where you're at, but black ice is when the ice is actually clear, or you can't see it. It's not white or crystalline. It's just kind of like a little bit of a sheen on the blacktop or the asphalt, okay? And it's dangerous because you don't see it. And I got a bunch of that stuff all over my property, okay? And actually the other day I was walking around out there and I slipped and fell. Like, I don't do that very often. Man, I tell you what, I hit the bricks, man. I went down like a cheap pair of salad tongs. And it was laughable now, but at the time it was pretty painful and a little bit shocking and embarrassing. It's like 1 minute you're walking and the next minute you're laying on your back looking at the clouds. I mean, it's that quick. So I'm recovering. It was, like I said, the only thing that really got hurt was my pride. Anyway, so today I want to share a story with you that came to mind the other night. So why don't you grab yourself a nice hot cup of coffee and maybe hang out with me for just a little while. Anyway, so like I mentioned in the Top of the Mountain episode, the last episode I released, my wife and I had gone to Las Vegas to deal with the funeral of her mother, my mother-in-law. And while we were there, we were staying in a hotel. There's a million hotels to stay at in Las Vegas, obviously. And unfortunately for me, I guess, you're not allowed to smoke in hotel rooms anymore. And you know what? It doesn't really bother me too much. I kind of understand that. It's a bad habit. Okay, I know that. But honestly, okay, I don't really smoke that much. Okay, it's kind of something that I savor. It's not something that I abuse. So I would like to think that I'm a little bit more moderate when it comes to smoking. And so therefore, it doesn't bother me to, not be able to smoke in my hotel room and to have to maybe go outside to one of those, pseudo smoking lounges that they set up outside of buildings these days, where it's like maybe a bench, an ashtray kind of thing. And, that's pretty much it. Okay. So I woke up one morning in our hotel room and I decided I wanted to go downstairs and have a cigarette, maybe have a cup of coffee, and just kind of prepare for the day a little bit mentally. So I go outside, I sit down on this bench, and I light up. And I'm just kind of sitting there taking in the climate, the sky, and just kind of thinking about the situation that we were going to have to deal with, and just, those kinds of things. And this dude comes along and sits down like right next to me on this bench. Okay, so it's just me and this guy. And, he's got like, a tank top, shorts, and flip-flops on. He's like maybe, I don't know, probably about 70 years old, or maybe 65 years old or something like that. An older fella, white hair, But obviously this guy, was either on drugs, drunk, both, or maybe even struggling with some kind of like mental illness or something. And right off the bat, like right when he sits down, he starts talking to me, okay? And it's really kind of funny because I'm used to that, I don't know if you remember me mentioning way back in the Snowflake 33 days, I talked about how I had this tendency to attract people that are, the quote-unquote freaks, of society. Like, they just are drawn to me for some reason, okay? So I wasn't, like, surprised or anything. But I did notice that with this particular fella, that he was, like, drooling a lot. And, his teeth were, like, rotting out of his mouth. His left eye was, like, blown out and, like, red. Like, just, some serious damage to his eye. His hair was a mess. He looked like he was probably homeless. And like I said, he sits down and he starts talking to me, and we start having actually a pretty interesting conversation. And he's telling me that he's from Nebraska. He has a farm in Nebraska. His name is James. He came to Las Vegas to become a famous singer, and he figured that if he was ever going to achieve his dream, like, now was the time to do it, at the age of 65. And I kind of figured that it was like some kind of I don't know, some kind of delusion, or some kind of ruse, or some kind of scheme of his or something. It was like almost waiting for him to say, give me all your money or something. Like waiting for it, but he didn't, and we wound up having this really great conversation. I was telling him about why I was in Las Vegas, and he was really polite and cordial, and it was just one of those things where and it's happened to me before, where I find myself having a conversation with somebody like that, and for some reason, when I'm having a conversation like that with a person like that, I wind up feeling good about it. I wind up being happier after I've talked to them, and I don't really know why. I mean, it's not some sense of charity or something like that. It's really something else that I can't quite pinpoint. I can't put my finger on it, but this guy was obviously a mess, and despite the fact that he was probably either, like I said, either high or mentally ill, or both, or whatever his deal was, he was really kind to me. However, what's strange is that right when I was leaving, I had to get up and go, I turned around to shake his hand, and it was really weird because he looked at me like really strange. I mean, he stuck his hand out, to shake my hand, but he had this look in his eye like he was angry, or like there was something wrong, like something was wrong. And I'll never forget it. Like it was just a subtlety, but it was there. I'm not quite sure what to make of that, but it was really kind of out of character, from what I knew of this guy, this conversation that we had. It really kind of struck me as odd that he just shot me this look when he was shaking my hand. Really strange. It's one of those things that makes me kind of wonder, like, what was I encountering? What was I actually talking to? Like there's something in this guy, that's what it seemed like. But like I said, he was really nice and everything. And I, went back to my room and kind of told my wife about it and everything. But I couldn't help but notice how good I felt after having talked to him. Like, it was really kind of strange. Don't quite know what to make of it, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Maybe you've had an experience like that yourself, where you're sitting somewhere by yourself minding your own business, and then a stranger comes up and starts talking, and it doesn't necessarily go bad, it goes well. And that was the case with James, the guy from Las Vegas. But another thing I wanted to talk about that's kind of related to this topic is, Las Vegas is known, it's very famous for its gambling and its casinos, and it's known as Sin City and all that. Anything goes in Las Vegas. But honestly, okay, I never really liked casinos. Like, gambling is just something that does not appeal to me whatsoever. Like, I'm not interested. I'm not against it or anything like that. I just don't have the desire to gamble. So, it's kind of an interesting, anthropological study to walk through any one of the casinos in Las Vegas. And at this point, I think I've been through every casino there, at least every major one. And I can't help it, like when I'm walking through these casinos and I see these people, man, just from all different walks of life, okay? Just every kind of person you can imagine, sitting behind like some digital slot machine. They have them lined up, maybe 5 or 10 machines like in a row right next to each other. And you walk past like column after column of slot machines. And, in each one of those columns, there's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people just kind of camped out. They have their, lucky whatever sitting next to them. They are just sitting there staring into this machine and just hitting the buttons. And, just maybe hours of sitting there. And as I'm walking past, it's almost like they're in cubicles, they're like, I can't help but kind of think about how much time they're wasting, and like, how did they get there? And like, how did they arrive at this place in their life where like the highlight of their day, or the majority of their day, is spent sitting behind these contraptions, just getting that dopamine fix, just hitting that button, hitting the button, hitting the button, over and over and over again. And I walk past them, and I'm not passing judgment or anything. I don't care if somebody wants to gamble, I don't care if that's what they want to do with their life, but I just can't help thinking the way that I do about it. It's almost a sense of pity that so much time and so much money is seemingly, at least to me, being wasted. To them, in their perspective, that's probably not the case at all. But I just can't help it, walking through just row after row of these machines, and you see these souls sitting there, I don't know. It makes me feel kind of sad, it makes me have pity for them. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have the wrong idea, but I don't know. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you agree. I don't know. And another thing I wanted to talk about today is this show that my wife and I stumbled across one night. By accident, really. We stumbled into it. It was a show on the Smithsonian Channel, which is like, a channel I never watch. But it was a show called America in Color. That's what it was called. And it was footage from like the 1920s, the 1930s, the 40s, and the 50s, all the way up to the 60s, I believe. Okay, I could be wrong. But what it was this old black and white footage from back in the day that somehow they have meticulously gone back and colorized all of this footage. And yeah, I've seen, the movies that they've done that too, like It's a Wonderful Life, the colorized version or whatever. And that's pretty cool. It's cool. I could take it or leave it, black or white, color, it doesn't matter. But what made this whole America in Color thing so interesting to me was how much more real those events that they had documented on film, and some of them are just so famous, historical moments in history that we're used to seeing, like on those old newsreels, FDR doing the speech for Pearl Harbor and A Day That Will Live in Infamy, all that kind of stuff, right? Like we see it in black and white, and it's, I don't know, I guess to me, okay, it's kind of like I'm detached from it. It's not connected to me. It's from another time, from a long, long time ago. Like as soon as I see something in black and white, the old footage, it registers in my brain that way, okay? It's almost like a way of taking the humanity out of it, okay? I mean, it may sound strange to you, but it doesn't sound strange to me, okay? It's the way my brain works, So seeing these events, these famous events in color, and watching some of this found footage, from these time periods that I've never seen before, and it's all colorized, it's all in color. It was just absolutely fascinating to watch and to learn from, because almost every decade that they covered was chock full of information and footage of events that took place that I never heard anything about. And what's more is that it's amazing to see how much things have not changed. That the issues that still are important to people on the planet Earth today were just as important back then. Yeah, the world might have changed. Things sped up a little bit. Haircuts changed. Fashion changed. But the issues, the core problems, the concerns are all the same. It's fascinating. And I couldn't help but kind of think, wow, I wish I would have had that when I was a kid. Like how lucky the younger generations are now that they have access to things like that they can watch that and learn from it. They probably don't, like it's their kids or whatever, but I don't know. I think if I were a kid and this kind of footage and information were made available to me as a young little kid running around, I don't know, man. I think I would have been pretty into it. I would have been paying attention. And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And watching all that footage, you can kind of see how there has been, like, since the turn of the century, the 1900s, there had been this steady moral decline. You can watch it happen, in real time. Like, you can watch it start in the 1900s, right? Or something like that. And you just gradually see things, morally or whatever, quote unquote, breaking down gradually. It's quite amazing to see it because, while I'm watching this footage, like, they show footage of like the Great Depression, was it Black Tuesday or whatever in America? Like, they're showing the footage of that day, okay? But we know how it played out. Like, we're so far away from it now in time. We know what happened. Like, so when they show Nixon claiming he was not in any way involved in Watergate, right? We already know how it played out. So it's just fascinating to watch it from the perspective that we have today. To look back on the history of things and know how they played out now. Okay? So, like, Pearl Harbor gets bombed. We see the footage. It's all in color, like we've never seen it before, right? But we know what happened after that. Okay? You fast forward to today, and we know what that bombing, what that footage led to in history. It's pretty fascinating to think about if you really think about it. You see John F. Kennedy being elected, but we know how it played out. We know how it ends, right? Pretty fascinating when you watch it through those eyes, When you watch the flappers and prohibition on alcohol being lifted in the 1920s, we already know how it plays out. Pretty cool. It's also kind of funny too, because, people still like the same things. Human beings still like, booze, parties, sex, food, some things never change. And that makes me laugh, Oh, human nature, it's just, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Especially when you think about something like the Depression, and when that all shook down, and, who was really responsible for it? That incredible dip in the stock market where, it was just, bedlam. People committing suicide because they lost everything. In a day, they lost everything, and, the implementation of this thing called the soup kitchen, the soup lines, the bread lines in America. Like, this happened. We forget about that kind of stuff, really, because we have the luxury of being able to forget about it. But you watch this footage, man, and it's like it becomes a reality. It becomes a reality. Just by putting it in color, at least to me, it just becomes a lot more real. Like, oh yeah, like this really happened. This isn't just some newsreel from the past. This is something that really happened. And do you know what I mean? Maybe you do. I hope you do. If not, then this probably sounds pretty stupid. But I can live with that. And, I suppose I can tie all this into this idea, okay? I guess maybe it's a little bit of a reach, but we can tie it into the idea of, generational curses, I believe in that. It's something I've kind of been spending some time thinking about, and judging by the reaction I got from that last episode I did of the Singularity podcast, a lot of people, I think, agree with a lot of what I was talking about in that podcast. And a lot of people have stories of their own to share. It was pretty profound, It makes me kind of process it all over again, that maybe there's something to this, like maybe there's some reality to the realm of the invisible, crossing over into our reality, and in many different ways, and like I said, different people with very different experiences. When you watch something like America in Color, and you can see the decline of, morality, because you really can, okay? It's not like, I don't think it's really a matter of opinion. You can see it rolling out, over the decades. Has that had an effect on the world that we live in today? Of course it has. Of course it has. I mean, you hear people talking about it all the time. There's like, YouTube video after YouTube video of people on the bus, demonically possessed or whatever, right? Pretty crazy footage, some of it is anyway. Yeah, I guess any of that stuff can be faked, but some of it I think is real. I think I have witnessed on videotape it anyway, real demonic possession. I believe I've seen it. I believe I've seen it in real people. I think I have. Don't know for sure. There's no way I can, but pretty sure. I've seen some pretty crazy things, had some pretty wild experiences, and I shared a lot of them with you in that last episode. I guess, I wish there was a forum. I wish there was a way for me to hear your stories about these kinds of things. Some of my listeners were gracious enough to share some of their stories with me. But, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of open to listening to you, Feel free to shoot me an email, if you have any stories that you want to share with me. I would definitely be interested in hearing them, And maybe talk about them, or something, Okay, now I also want to talk to you today about this idea that I had that I think might be worth sharing with you today, okay? And it starts with like a question, okay? Like, you go through life and you learn things, right? And you think you're pretty smart, Not the most intelligent person in the world, but you know a few things, right? Did you ever have a situation where you realize how much you don't know? Oh my gosh. Well, I did, it's something that really is funny to think about, okay? At least it is to me, okay? Because I don't have any problem admitting my own ignorance, okay? It's it may be one of my more positive aspects to my personality, okay? I have no problem seeing my flaws and laughing at them, okay? But I was watching this again, I was watching this series on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube, obviously. And it was called Show Us Your Junk. Okay. Now, if you're like a musician, producer, artist of any kind, if you're a musician, this is a series that you should probably check out because it's really interesting. And it's, like I said, it was like a revelation to me. Okay. It's a show, a series that goes into famous recording studios that are currently operating, okay? and they take you on a tour through the studio, and they show you the equipment they use, the technology that they use, the history of these studios, like who's recorded there, what was recorded there. All that stuff is really interesting. Okay. But throughout the course of this series, one of the things I realized, which I kind of knew already, okay, was like, I basically don't know. I don't know anything about recording music. Okay. Now, keep in mind, this is all happening at the time that I'm writing new material, right? And, I kind of think to myself, okay, I got my arms around this thing. I know what I'm doing. A little bit, But after watching the show, I just realized, man, what I don't know about recording totally surpasses what I do know about recording. And it was really kind of laughable to me. Still is. That's why I'm bringing it up, because I think it's important to reflect on those kinds of things. I mean, the idea is, like with anything else in life, you want to do better as you go along. I mean, you want to learn more, and after doing something for like 20 years or something, you'd like to think anyway that you've learned a few things. And, honestly, I have. Okay, I have. I'm not completely lost or bewildered, okay? But with some of the stuff, like for instance, the effect pedals that they use in these studios, I guess I learned that, effect pedals are a large part of what happens in a studio. And I didn't know that at all. And I guess that, this show, Show Us Your Junk, is sponsored by a effect pedal company. So that's kind of like the emphasis of this show. Like, they want to see the pedals that are used in these studios, the choices that these engineers and these producers make when it comes to adding effects to your mix and stuff like that. But it was just when I thought I had some, grasp of studio engineering or whatever, along comes something like this where it's like, damn, I just don't know anything. I don't know anything. It sucks, man. It sucks. But, it's all a learning experience, right? And another thing that I wanted to talk about, okay, was this weird kind of, I don't know, I guess I would call it like a phenomena, okay, where I record something, I write something and record it like earlier in the day, and it sounds great, okay? And maybe you know what I'm talking about, like you're happy with what you did, but then when you go back and listen to it like later or like the next day, it sounds terrible. And that doesn't happen all the time for me, okay? But it does happen, a lot, okay? And I can never quite understand why that happens. So maybe if you are a more experienced studio engineer, you can kind of give me your feedback on that, because I would appreciate it. I think you know who I'm talking about. And in case you haven't noticed, I'm kind of meandering here. I didn't sit down with like a plan today. I just decided to start talking. So I apologize, if this is not the most exciting Singularity podcast that I've done. I'm trying. I'm trying. And here's another thing I wanted to talk about. I'm not necessarily sure I should, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Okay, I had this strange interaction or like experience with this person. who I won't name, they'll remain nameless, okay? There's this person, okay, I had asked a favor of doing some singing bits, okay, for a project that I was working on. And this person graciously did me the favor, no questions asked, okay? And I let them know when the project was over that I owed them one, okay? Like I would be into reciprocity. If they ever needed something from me, I would be willing to help them out, okay? So I guess I can also say that throughout the interaction, this project that I was involving this person with, the interactions weren't necessarily smooth. Like I felt anyway, the person's personality was a little abrasive sometimes, and maybe mine was too, okay? So no harm, no foul, but the reality was that, my impression was from this person, who remains nameless, that the relationship was professional but strained, okay? Like if we were to meet in person and hang out, we probably wouldn't really get along really well, which to me doesn't mean anything at all, okay? Work is work, play is play, all right? So a couple months pass, all right? And this person contacts me again, and they say, because they are not a musician, okay, they say to me, I have these lyrics for a song, and they sang a bit of it to me, okay, and they had asked me if I would be willing to arrange it, put it into a song structure and play the chords, the music to it, and kind of like write a version of the song for them that they could have, okay? Now, like I said, I'm totally about reciprocity. I owed them one, no problem, okay? So I do it. It takes me about a day or two of tinkering around with it, and I finally come up with something that's like, pretty good, like doable and workable, okay? So I send this person the song, I send them the session that I made it in so they could have it, okay? Totally for free. I don't want any credit. They could just have it. I don't care. It wasn't hard to do, and I owed them one, right? Okay. So I told the person like on a Monday that I would have it for them on Friday. I agree on Monday, I'll have it done by Friday, by the end of the week, right? Well, I managed to get it finished a day early, so I sent it to this person on Thursday. Okay? Got it? And so I'm waiting, I'm waiting for a response. I'm waiting for something to kind of like let me know, well, one, that they got the files that I sent, right? That they liked what they hear or they don't like what they hear, okay? And I wait and I wait and I wait, and I don't hear anything until Saturday. Now, I don't know about you, okay, but it kind of pissed me off a little bit, okay? Because, I had taken my time to do this, okay? So I figured the least they could do is, kind of like respond in a timely fashion, okay? Maybe it's not the top priority of their day, but, be considerate, have some consideration for me, and kind of let me know. Give me some feedback. Give me something, right? So, Saturday, I'm talking to this person. We're in the middle of a conversation. We're talking about these tracks. We're talking about the song structure via email, okay? And then, kind of like in the middle of the conversation, I ask a question or something, and there's no answer. So I'm sitting there waiting, like we're in the middle of a conversation, like we're talking about this, and all of a sudden it just abruptly stops, okay? So probably about 10 or 15 minutes later, this person responds, and I'm like, where did you go? Like we were in the middle of a conversation. Like, what the hell? Like, what's that all about? Well, I was on a call with someone else. What? Like, we were in the middle of doing this. Like, we're in the middle of talking about this, and you're on the phone with somebody else. Like, so you cut me off to go talk on the phone with somebody else? I'm like, I hate when people do that, okay? I don't know, maybe I'm old-fashioned or something, okay? But doesn't it make sense that, like, when you're talking to someone, like if they have to step away or they have to pause the conversation, that they would say something, that they would acknowledge it that way. Like, I'll be right back. I have to take a call. I'll be right back, or something like that. I mean, I just find that so absolutely rude that someone would do that. So I kind of expressed to this person, right, that it pissed me off. Like, I hate when people do that. Like, don't do that. All right. If we're talking about music, we're talking about a project we're working on, don't just disappear, right? Like, at least let me know you're stepping away. Okay. That's my point. All right. Well, this person comes back at me with like anger and disgust that I was so impatient or whatever, and decides that they don't want to have anything to do with this project anymore, that it's over. They don't want to do anything anymore. Okay. And they go off about how mean I am and how inconsiderate, or like I have a mean streak and everything. And I'm like, a mean streak? Like, I just recorded all the stuff for you for free, and I gave you everything. I even let you keep it, and I don't even want any credit for it. And you think I have a mean streak? Like, what are you talking about? You know? It confuses me. And it brings me to this point, okay? That what is normal and acceptable, like, manners and etiquette in social interaction is not present in most online interactions that I have. It's not the first time that this kind of thing has happened, but it is the first time that I said something to somebody about it. Okay? Normally I just keep my mouth shut and I don't say anything. I just get offended and then like get over it. But this time I said something, and you know, this person didn't want to hear it and just cut me off. Just like, what? They just cut me off. Like, I did all this stuff for you, and I expressed myself that you had offended me, and now all of a sudden we're just not going to talk or deal anymore. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the world that we live in, you know, where people just do not care about the other person, right? They only care about themselves. And I'm sorry, but I don't fit into a world like that. Okay? I don't know what else to say, but it's not the first time that's happened, and it's probably not the last time it'll happen. I just felt like, damn it, I gotta say it, you know? I just want to say it and see if anybody agrees with me, you know? I'm just like fed up with the rude and inconsiderate behavior of a lot of people that I have dealt with online. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Maybe I'm overreacting, you know? Maybe I have the problem. I probably do. I guess I can kind of be a jerk sometimes, or be short with people, or, you know, quick to anger or something, I suppose. You know, sometimes, depending on the situation. But I think most of the time, I'm pretty even keel. I'm pretty laid back. I'm the kind of guy that will record tracks for you for free and give them to you, and not want credit and not want money or anything like that. That doesn't sound like a mean or bad person to me. Okay? And just for your information, if I were talking to you and I had to step away from our conversation, I would let you know. So maybe that's the point that I'm trying to make, is like, maybe we can all start doing that for each other. maybe, be considerate that way. I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, anyway, so hope this wasn't too boring. I think I hope you take it like this, that I was doing this episode for you because I know that I haven't given you one in a while, and I wanted to give you something rather than nothing. And I want to get back to my songwriting, and educating myself about studio art, So for now, this is Mike Bostwick from Pipe Choir Records signing off. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy.